Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a story so ancient, it's practically fossilized. But don't worry, I'll dust it off for you. Picture this, a moonlit pond in 8th century China, where scholars aren't just sipping tea or writing poetry, they're lowering polished wooden go boards into the water like they're trying to baptize their strategies. You'd think they'd stick to dry land, right? But nope. These guys were convinced that ripples held the universe's cheat codes. One wrong move, and your genius plan gets swallowed by the same water that's currently hosting a family of very judgmental koi fish. Here's the kicker. You're probably sitting there thinking, why not just play on a nice table like normal people? Well, grab your metaphorical snorkel, because back then, normal was for peasants who didn't understand that water could think. The Tang Dynasty's brainiacs believed stillness wasn't just about quiet, it was a full-blown philosophy. Every ripple was a math problem, every splash a debate partner. They'd stare at those water rings like they were decoding alien hieroglyphs. And honestly, some of their theories make modern quantum physics look like a toddler's finger painting. Now, before you get too comfy scrolling through TikTok or whatever your vice is, let's get one thing straight. This isn't a bedtime story. If you zone out now, you'll miss the part where I explain why these scholars used duck feathers to clean their ghostones. Spoiler, ducks were basically the Roomba of the Tang Dynasty. So, if you're into weird history that's weirder than your uncle's conspiracy theories, take a sec to smash that like button. Subscribe if you're into it, no pressure though. I'm not your mom, just a random voice in your earbuds at 2 a.m. Oh, and drop a comment with your city and local time. Let's see who's watching from a bunker in Reykjavik or a coffee shop in Buenos Aires. Now, crank up the AC for that sweet white noise, dim your screen to Moody Crypt Keeper, and let's wade into the murky waters of ancient strategy. The whole thing started with a monk named Li Wei, who, according to a scroll found in a rotted-out temple, once meditated so hard by a pond, he hallucinated the moon teaching him go tactics. Legend says he carved the first water-resistant board using wood from a tree struck by lightning during a solar eclipse. Because apparently, subtlety wasn't his thing. But here's the twist. Historians still argue whether Li Wei was a real person or just a PR campaign cooked up by later scholars to make their obsession sound less unhinged. The real kicker: these guys didn't just play near water, they weaponized it. They'd toss pebbles to create ripples mid-game, forcing opponents to adapt their moves to the chaos. Imagine playing chess while someone's shaking the table, except the table is alive and actively trying to gaslight you. Oh, and they used jade stones sourced from a quarry that's now buried under a KFC in Chengdu. Archaeologists found a stash of them in 2012, still slick with centuries-old algae. But here's where it gets weird. Some scrolls suggest the water wasn't just a metaphor. They believed the pond's reflection acted as a literal mirror to the mind. If your thoughts were scattered, ripples would scatter your strategy. One account describes a match where a scholar's reflection winked at him before he made a catastrophic move. Coincidence? Probably. Terrifying? Absolutely. And don't even get me started on the silent stones. These were special pieces carved with hollow centers, designed to sink slower than regular ones. Players would hold their breath while placing them, because apparently oxygen was the enemy of enlightenment. The longest recorded breath hold, 4 minutes. The guy passed out and face planted into the pond. His opponent declared victory, then spent the next hour fishing him out with a bamboo pole. By the way, if you're wondering why this isn't in your history textbooks, blame Emperor Xuanzong. Dude hated the whole water go trend, called it a waste of good ponds. His solution: tax the hell out of anyone caught playing near lakes. Naturally, scholars just started using bathtubs, so next time you're stressing over a decision, remember, some guy in a soggy robe 1,200 years ago probably had it worse. And if anyone asks why you're staring at a puddle, just say you're harmonizing with the cosmic ripples. Works every time. You kneel at the pond's edge, the same moonlit waters where centuries ago scholars first sank their obsidian and ivory stones. Your fingertips skim the surface, scattering constellations into liquid confetti. That's when you spot it, your own face fractured into 100 warring expressions. The old masters called this heaven's scribbleboard, where every ripple rewrote destiny. Rain begins its patter, not the annoyed drizzle of modern weather apps, but the kind fat enough to make ink run on parchment. A pearlescent ghost stone glints up from the murk, a deliberate loss left by some Tang Dynasty strategist. Historians still argue whether these sunken stones were sacrifices to water spirits or just ancient versions of rage quitting. Either way, you're tempted to pocket it until a carp surfaces, glaring like an underwater librarian shushing you. The real magic wasn't in winning, but in watching. Imagine Master Li Sixun, his beard threatening to dip into the pond as he leans closer. Each stone's drop slows underwater, fighting currents that rearrange battle lines mid-plunge. You've heard of chess clocks. These scholars had tidal clocks. Miss your move. The loach swimming through the grid gets to decide your fate. Here's where history gets delightfully weird. Those scrolls in the Forbidden City archives, they fail to mention the lard. Oh yes, scholars rubbed pork fat on stones to make them sink erratic. Why? Because nothing teaches acceptance like your perfectly planned invasion of enemy territory, suddenly veering off to flirt with a tadpole. A Ming Dynasty diary confesses, 3rd moon, Tuesday, lost 6 stones, 2 hairpins, and my composure to a particularly persuasive catfish. Your reflection wobbles, a sneaky reminder of why this worked. Water doesn't just mirror, it argues. That smug smirk you wore after placing a clever stone. The pond multiplies it into a chorus line of arrogant grins, until a leaf crashes the party. Humility, served wet. Modern therapists charge 200 silver coins an hour for less. Ever tried folding a wave? 8th century poets did their manuscripts describe capturing ripples in layered silk, though only 3 survived the burnings of Emperor Xuanzong's reign. One scrap reads, "The board becomes the world thrice over in stone, in reflection, in the thief's face stealing both." Cryptic, absolutely. But then you notice your sleeve's edge is soaking. The pawn's claiming its consultation fee. Debates still rage whether these aquatic strategies birthed the 36 stratagems used in warfare. After all, what's a sneaky river crossing but moving your stones through enemy waters? Yet for every scholarly text, there's duckweed clinging to the truth. The real lesson whispers through your dripping sleeve. Control is missed. Adaptation, that's the marrow here. A kingfisher dives, snatching a stone instead of a fish. Maybe it's looking to build the world's tiniest palace. Maybe you're projecting. Either way, you finally understand why old treatises mention the feathered opponent. Nature always cheats, but only if you call pattern-breaking cheating. The pond nods, or maybe that's your knees protesting from crouching too long. As twilight bleeds into the water, you think of Su Dongpo's lost verse, the one comparing life to a stone sinking through cold tea. He probably wrote it right here, wine jug appended into the shallows. The real mystery, whether poets played Go or the Go played them. Your chilled hands hover above the board, now a galaxy of ripples, now a shattered mirror, now just water, patient as packed soil after drought. One stone left in your sleeve. You let it fall. Your ears fill with liquid silence as you sink, hands still gripping the lacquered Go board. Water's chill crawls up your sleeves like an overeager apprentice monk clutching incense. 12 feet down, the world becomes a tea-stained snow globe. Historians love debating whether Tang Dynasty scholars held their breath to sharpen focus or just avoid hypothermic seizures. Either way, you're about to learn why 8th century texts mention bladder control 13 times per chapter. Stones hover around you, black and white petals in a zero-gravity garden. That's the first shock. On land, each clack signals decisive action. Down here, your killer move floats sideways to kiss a snail's shell. The Ming manuals warned about this, like herding drunk fireflies. One admiral scribbled after losing 42 naval battles. Yet, when a stone does settle, the muffled thunk vibrates through your ribs like a war drum wrapped in velvet. Fun fact archaeologists hate discussing. Half these underwater Go boards show teeth marks. Bite down during oxygen starvation. Deliberate stress test. Or maybe scholars just really missed afternoon snacks. Your lungs begin their third reminder that humans are 60% water and 100% needy. Across the pond's murk, something glints, a Tang Dynasty bronze mirror lashed to a sunken pillar. Contingency plan. Narcissism. Open debate rages whether these were focus aids or early versions of water tick-tock for bored scholars. Pressure builds behind your eyes. Now you understand why Jin Dynasty texts prescribed 3 silent screams before plunging. Thing is screaming underwater, just recycles panic. A carp glides past, gawking at your predicament like a judgmental auntie at Lunar New Year. Legend says Master Wu once meditated submerged for the length of an incense stick's burn, but his diary later confessed, blacked out after 13 frog kicks. Servants fished me out with a noodle strainer. Your fingers brush the next stone carved from Lanchan jade, heavier than regret. Through the distortion, its descent resembles a hawk circling prey. Except the mouse in this metaphor is your ego. Strategists whispered that slow-sinking stones revealed the true shape of time. Modern brain scans sort of agree. Stress deprivation forces the mind into delta waves. Of course, back then they just called it Carp brain enlightenment. Something taps your shoulder. You spin, kicking up silt that clouds the board into abstract art. When it settles, the game's transformed. 3 enemy stones now bracket your strongest group. Proof of aquatic ghosts. Or did the koi finally master Waiki tactics? Your cheeks burn with spent oxygen. A Zen proverb floats through the haze. Drowning men count their stones twice. Light fractures above, someone's shadow rippling across the surface like spilled ink. 9th century rules required attendants to pour hot tea every 7 minutes. Miss the cue. Congratulations. Your tombstone now reads, died literally mid-strategy. The heat difference creates convection currents, nature's metronome. Your tea's been cold for hours, but adrenaline dilates seconds into eras. That jade stone finally lands, nudging a pebble that activates a submerged chime. The sound. Think Buddhist prayer bell filtered through a drunk didgeridoo. Historians still can't replicate the tone, but estate sales hawk authentic replica chimes to gullible collectors. Your throat betrays you. A bubble escapes like a traitorous courier. Ancient manuals dictate 4 bubble phases, trivial, concerning, ancestors await, and Liu Bang's horse laughter. You're solidly in phase 3. Panic sharpens your vision. The board's gridlines now pulse like veins. A white stone near the edge vibrates. You realize it's levitating, or is the silt sinking faster? The 1123 AD aquatic Go Codex mentions hover stones, but blames river demons. Modern fluid dynamics suggest temperature gradients. Either way, your winning move just became a mobile home for algae. Breath holding as training tool, cruel or genius. Han Dynasty docs praise it for curing indecision. A man who fears drowning chooses paths quickly. You're choosing between 11 terrible options. Then it hits, literally. A soggy lotus pod plummets onto the board, scattering seeds like chaotic bystanders. Nature's commentary on your pathetic tactics. Desperate, you slam a stone downward, only to watch it ricochet off a turtle shell. The reptile flashes a look that clearly says amateur. Your vision tunnels. Final play a diagonal stab at territory that's maybe yours. The stone spirals, caressed by currents older than calligraphy. Halfway down, it pauses, suspended like a chopstick between dumplings. In this liquid limbo, you grasp why Yuan scholars called drowning the great teacher. Control dissolves, plans evaporate, only the raw game remains. Unconcerned with your fleshy needs, the stone resumes its fall, blackness. You burst through the surface, gasping like a landed fish. Water cascades from your sleeves, each droplet scribbling illegible truths across the board. Records claim Master Feng once surfaced so gracefully, her hairpin remained dry. You, meanwhile, resemble a waterlogged manuscript, but your opponent, the pond itself, already reshaped the match. That last stone, now nestled beside a frog's egg cluster. Whether this constitutes a valid placement still sparks legal debates in Kyoto tea houses. As your heartbeat slows, you notice the jade stone emits a faint hum. Or maybe that's tinnitus from oxygen debt. 8th century poets wrote of stones singing when correctly placed, though cynics argue they just hallucinated between hypoxic blackouts. You drip across the shoreline, each step squelching a haiku. Somewhere beneath the algae, the game continues patient as roots breaching tomb walls. Tomorrow's problem. For now, the board waits, and water never forgets a single move. Your fingers prune into wrinkled maps of river deltas as you resurface, the pond's surface tension clinging to your wrists like overcooked rice glue. Breathe, hold, dive. Standard scholar protocol after a near drowning. Or so you tell yourself while blinking pond scum from your lashes. This time, you descend into an arena where words hold no power, water muffling boasts, turning every smirk into bubbles, every curse into a guppy's shrug. Here, strategy becomes pure choreography. Observe, a rival scholar across the algae-blurred board holds up 3 fingers. Not a countdown, not a threat. A 9th century hand signal, meaning your mother's mulberry pie recipe lacks salt. Just kidding, it actually declares intent to invade the upper right quadrant. Discovered in a Tang Dynasty scroll, buried with a Go master's favorite teacup, these gestures formed a silent lexicon. Think semaphore meets underwater charades. Historians confirmed 86 distinct signs, though debate rages whether the itchy nose motion meant retreat or sand flea infestation. You counter with the classic double palms up flick, unwise aggression, like a drunken badger at a porcelain market. Your opponent's reply, a slow twirl of the index finger. Translation, your ancestors' ashes blush at this weak defense, or maybe turtle approaching from starboard. Aquatic goes secret sauce, ambiguity. Each gesture blooms with 3 meanings, minimum. Surviving guides suggest nodding meant concession, unless performed while scratching the left ear, in which case it signaled I've hidden a loofah cake in the reeds for later. Stones become punctuation. A white piece placed vertically in the grid's corner screams territorial claim. angle it diagonally. That's a backhanded compliment on your rival's choice of bathing robes. Southern song scholars took this further, embedding coded jokes in stone patterns. Unearth a 1245 AD diary entry. Laid black stones in the shape of Magistrate Lee's receding hairline. He retaliated with my wife's infamous cucumber sculpture. Fair play. Watch closely. Your rival now releases a pebble at waist height. It sinks languidly, wobbling like a concussed firefly. A distraction, or the fabled drunken swallow gambit. You'll never know. Water distorts speed and intent. Ming chronicles warn that hesitation invites the Carp's critique, a term both poetic and literal. Your left foot brushes something squishy. Glance down. A grinning koi chews your discarded sandal strap. 14 centuries ago, that fish's ancestor probably nibbled Master Xuanzong's toe mid-match. Communication breakdowns sparked legends. Take the great mime schism of 1122. Purists argued only stone placements should convey intent. Reformists lobbied for interpretive dance. Scrolls depict scholars floating like disoriented jellyfish to indicate bad moves. The emperor settled it with a decree carved into a floating log. Gestures allowed, except the one involving armpit noises. Your lungs begin their familiar mutiny. Focus wavers. A memory surfaces. Grand historian Sima Qian's account of underwater matches between wartime generals. Sworn enemies sharing a submerged board, negotiating truces through stone formations. No treaties signed, no oaths sworn, just a white stone placed deliberately in that corner, and 10,000 soldiers spared. No pressure. Your opponent pulls a jade token from their sleeve. A controversial move banned in 803 AD after the incident of the floating bribe. The token glows faintly, its inscribed lotus pattern rippling the water. Modern X-rays suggest hollow chambers inside these tokens, possibly holding spices for emergency alertness, or pepper flakes for sabotaging sneeze-prone rivals. You counter with the humblest of stones, rough-hewn slate from Mount Imei. Tactile, unpretentious, sharp enough to slice complacency. A bubble escapes your lips, spiraling upward to pop where your pride once floated. Crucial moment, adjust your grip. Grip styles conveyed entire philosophies per the liquid tactics primer. Fingertip hold, Taoist fluidity. Fist clutch, Confucian discipline. Thumb and pinky, show off, preparing to lose spectacularly. You opt for the crane's beak, then fumble the stone. It plummets like a cuckoo egg into a nest of white pieces. Your rival freezes. Is that shock or silent laughter? Water amplifies mistakes. Recall peasant myths warning that poorly placed stones could summon river demons. Not entirely baseless, 1153 AD records describe a Zhejiang match where misplaced pieces aligned with submerged statues, triggering a whirlpool. Probably just bad luck. Probably. The board's edges blur into a silt haze now, You rely on muscle memory, that sweet spot where strategy transcends thought. Legend says Master Ru carved his final move posthumously via rigor mortis fingered witch. Gruesome, sure, effective. His widow kept winning tournaments using his still fresh tactics for weeks. Your rival's sleeve floats up, revealing tattooed grids on their forearm, a cheat sheet or declaration of addiction. No judgment. Yuan Dynasty texts mention players' branding, go patterns onto livestock for portable practice. Imagine herding cows while analyzing territorial frameworks, modern equivalent. Those anime-themed Go apps draining your phone battery. Silence grows denser than the pawn's murk. Without voices, victories ring hollow. Defeats taste metallic. Yet here lies the allure water strips strategy bare. No flattery, no bluster, just the raw arithmetic of choice and consequence. Your next stone hovers over a critical intersection. 1 centimeter left, aggressive expansion. Right, cautious consolidation. Your hand wavers, and the pond decides for you. A sudden current tugs the piece sideways into a nonsense zone. Nature's veto. You glance up, seeking mercy from the surface's shimmering ceiling. Instead, a distorted silhouette leans over the pond. Scholar, assassin, tea server aiming a fresh pot. Squint harder. Just a willow branch swaying in time with your pulse. Or is it? Conspiracy theorists cite Song era aquatic referees who nudged stones via hidden fishing lines. Evidence. A single ledger entry. Payment. 40 coins for lake string maintenance. Riveting. Breath dwindles. Time for the final play. A kamikaze stone dropped from chest height. Legendary Tutor Wang high swore this move startles dragons into coughing up wisdom. The stone descends ricochets off a turtle's shell and nestles into a cluster of white. Your rival slumps or floats listlessly. It's hard to tell, then taps their collarbone twice. Official gesture for you've won this round. Unofficial translation. My hemorrhoids are killing me. Breaking surface. You gulp air flavored with damp moss and petty triumph. Across the pond, your opponent wrings lake water from their beard, a gesture once banned as excessively dramatic under Emperor Lizong. Ripples erase the board's memory, but sediment holds secrets. Archaeologists still debate whether dredged-up stones found in circular patterns represent lost strategies. Oh, who are we kidding? They're just rocks that rolled downhill. Your chest heaves. Toes squelch in mud that's equal parts earth and centuries of discarded strategies. Somewhere below, the koi devours your sandals' remains, a living shredder of ego. Tomorrow's problem. For now, the silent arena rests, where every unspoken rule hums beneath the surface, patient as moonlight on a dormant board. Your sandal-less foot finds purchase on a moss-slicked boulder. The waterfalls roar, flattening all thoughts into a white noise hum. Through mist that tastes like shattered quartz, you spot it. A go board chiseled into the cliffside, its grid lines worn smooth by centuries of cascading punishment. This isn't your genteel pond match anymore. Welcome to the Thunder Academy, where 12th century renegades played Go Mid-Cataract and called it character building. Step closer if the current doesn't pluck you off like a stray noodle. Notice those iron stakes driven into the rock, not handholds. Original scorekeepers. Each rusted spike marks where masters hung lanterns to continue games after dark, and occasionally, to fish out less buoyant pupils, dive logs from 1147 AD confirm 3 scholars retrieved with improved humility after losing both the match and their lunch, the real attractions underfoot. Peer into the plunge pool. Cloudy water swirls around submerged stone markers. This is where Master Hui, the Elon Musk of aquatic Go, redesigned the game for vertical play. Picture it, players clinging to ropes, shouting moves over thunderous falls, while apprentices timed their grips with incense sticks. His 1163 manifesto stones in Tempest argued true strategy flourishes only when death lobbies cheap laughs at your footing. Cheerful guy, historians credit Hui with inventing the dragon's nest formation after watching carp spawn upstream. Mainstream scholarship agrees until you ask which part of the waterfall he trained at. The debate's drier than a tax collector's soul. Zhejiang province claims him, but so does a dusty hamlet in Guangdong whose main export is peacock feathers and suspicion. Check any Tang Dynasty tourism vid. They'll all swear he breathed their air. Your fingers trace a groove in the rock, too precise for erosion. Hui's disciples allegedly carved calculus into these cliffs between matches, though carbon dating suggests they just really loved etching duck silhouettes. The real math lives in his rule tweaks. See those notches along the board's edge. They channel water into mini rapids that redistribute stones unless anchored. Modern engineers recreated it in a lab. Turns out Hui nailed fluid dynamics 8 centuries before Bernoulli. All this genius soured when the blind monk Yuanwu arrived dripping zen and dumpling crumbs. Records claim he navigated the roaring falls by tracking the scent of oversteeped oolong and promptly challenged Hui to a match. Their showdown lasted 3 days, climaxing in a move still taught in grad schools, the submerged star junction. Hui placed a black stone upstream, exploiting hydraulics to nudge 6 white pieces into a surrender spiral. Yuanwu countered by doing nothing, just sat there, cross-legged and grinning, as the current rearranged the board into a perfect Waiki proverb. The loudest waterfall cannot drown a silent truth. Hui forfeited, not because he lost, he hadn't, but because Yuanwu's unflinching calm exposed a hole in his philosophy wider than the Yangtze. The monk's prize, a single pebble from the board. His demand that Hui inscribe it with the victor's name is written in runoff. That pebble's now enshrined in Hangzhou's Go Museum. Though interns whisper it gets used as a paperweight during budget meetings. But here's the twist. that keeps grad students guzzling energy drinks. Hui's loss birthed 3 rules still sacred today. 1. Never play where water can't reach. 2. Let the current erase 1 stone per game, embracing chaos. 3. If your opponent coughs up a lung, you both take a tea break. The last one's less profound, but it cut drowning deaths by 60%. Wade deeper. Feel the undertow tug at your knees. They didn't have neoprene wetsuits when Abbot Xian tried combining go with ice cave diving. Don't laugh. His cryo-go strategy worked until the hot sake ran out. Focus instead on board remnants wedged between rocks. That crescent-shaped depression, Hui's personal stone sanitizing station. After Yuanwu beat him, he supposedly scrubbed each piece, yelling, "Hubris repels karma." 6 weeks later, his skin developed a patina that repelled mosquitoes. Silver linings, your elbow bumps a dangling rope, the last surviving safety harness from Hui's academy. Thermally aged hemp fibers match those in a disputed scroll fragment showing students rappelling into the falls. Skeptics argue it's just Tang Dynasty performance art. Believers counter. Ever tried taking a bathroom break mid-cataract? A flicker of white beneath the surface, Yuanwu's ghost. Relax. Just a shoal of minnows schooling in the shape of his infamous 4-pass invasion strategy. Or paranoia. Court documents reveal Hui's nephew tried trademarking waterfall go moves as liquid intellectual property. The judge ruled in his favor, then fell into a koi pond during the celebration. Poetic justice washes off eventually. The mist thickens. You're here now, knees trembling, ears ringing, grip slipping. Would Hui approve? Probably. His diary entry from the Yuanwu match surfaces in memory. To play anchored is to concede the river's right to laugh. Place your first stone. Watch the current seize it. Carry it 3 hand widths downstream and lodge it against a rusted nail. The game begins or continues. Centuries blur where water greets stone. Somewhere, a deaf hermit smiles. Rain hammers the courtyard stones like a million drunken drummers, each drop shouting, "Move faster," as you scramble up mossy steps. Monsoon seasons here, and some poor schmuck, you forgot to check the lunar calendar. Below, the once dry chessboard plaza now ripples ankle deep, transformed into the celestial YG arena. Don't let the fancy name fool you. It's just a fancy way to say giant puddle, where nobles gambled their silk underwear on go matches. Squelch toward the center. Those grooves underfoot aren't cracks. Centuries of monks dragged stones to etch drainage channels into a chi-worshipping mandala. They called it Heaven's Grid. Contractors today call it proof. Ancient engineers hated their knees. Historical records from Hangzhou's Imperial Library confirm workers received extra rice wine for carving during storms, the only time soft sandstone surrendered. Cheers to productivity. Your toe bumps a half-submerged statue. A frog with ghost stones for eyes. Not decor. The Raincounter's Guild planted hundreds of these to mark safe zones where currents wouldn't yank your pieces downstream. Smart, until someone swapped a real frog onto the plinth. Led to a brief but passionate religion-worshipping rhetorical strategists. Don't laugh. Their play style crushed 3 imperial champions before someone noticed the croaking. Shelter under a sagging pine. Watch apprentices wrestle tarps over stone basins, stormwater collection tanks masquerading as wisdom urns. Here's the kicker. Those tanks fed the palace's actual plumbing. Turns out flushing a royal toilet with strategic rainwater was considered honoring the cosmic balance. Philosophers wrote poems about it. Plumbers wrote complaint scrolls in blood-red ink. A peal of thunder shakes your molars. Right on schedule, the first lightning flash reveals players taking positions. No umbrellas, no shoes, just linen tunics plastered to skin, and the kind of focus usually reserved for diffusing fireworks. Observe the Chungli method. Masters timed their moves to raindrop impacts, reading patterns in the splatter. Think it's hokum. A 2018 MIT study proved erratic noise boosts creative problem solving by 42%. Eat your heart out. Productivity hacks. Historians still argue whether monsoon games were sacred rites or just scholars getting stir-crazy during floods. The answer's etched in Emperor Lizong's diary entry from July 1245. Lord Shen ruined my 4-year winning streak. May his rice turn maggoty. Also, please send towels. Slosh over to the spectator zone, a bamboo platform where nobles bet jars of fire ant honeycomb. Check the ledger stones underfoot. That tally of 17 vertical lines, not scores. Drowned referees. Turns out arbitrating arguments over soggy stone placement involved more spear practice than anyone expected. Your sleeve snags on a corroded chain. Drag it up, the famous humility collars. Novices wore these iron necklaces during matches to anchor arrogance. Cute idea. Less cute when lightning magnetized them during that infamous 1207 tournament. Survivors described hairstyles resembling angry badgers. Over there, where the courtyard dips into a miniature rapids. That's where Lady Ling invented her trademark, tidal assault strategy. She'd let opponents waste moves, damming water flow. Then release a hidden reservoir plug, washing their stones into a perfect losing formation. Her 1223 downfall, forgetting which pond held carp and which held the palace's experimental exploding eels. Duck as a sodden scroll arcs overhead, probably some scholar's attempt at a rainproof scoring system. They tried everything: squid ink calligraphy, wax-sealed stone carvings, interpretive dance. The winning solution: hiring teenagers with photographic memories and promising them dumplings 50 paces north. A crumbling archway still bears Master Zhu's rain-reckoning equations. His life's work calculating optimal stone density to avoid float-offs. Too bad he used monsoon data from a year the records now call the Great Drought that wasn't. Pro tip: never trust a mathematician who doesn't own a rain gauge. The downpour slackens. Players emerge from their trance, blinking like sailors shipwrecked on Strategy Island. Servants rush in with ginger tea and regret. You half expect a debrief session. Nope. They're scouring the ground for discarded stones to repurpose as drainage plugs. Waste not, want not, drown not. As twilight bruises the sky, spot the real magic, the afterburn. Watch masters glide across now calm pools, studying how settled stones mirror constellations. They'll swear this is where true enlightenment blooms, in stillness after chaos, clarity after the roar. You might mock until you notice every reflection's flipped left to right. A reminder: sometimes seeing upside down is the only way to grasp what's upright. A frog croaks near your foot, stone or flesh. You can't tell anymore. Doesn't matter. Monk Xuanzong said it best in his drenched musings. Rain asks no permission to reshape the earth. Why would strategy? The Yangtze's brown water closes over your head like a lukewarm blanket, the kind your weird aunt crochets from recycled yak hair. Your too tight wetsuit chafes as you kick past soda cans and the ghostly shapes of catfish. Down here, the riverbed isn't mud, but a layer cake of dynasties, and pottery shards beneath Tang coin piles, all guarding the real prize. Dr. Lin's voice crackles through your earpiece, sharp as a ghost stone striking wood. Stop eyeballing those Ming teacups and head northwest. The good stuff's buried where the current digs. You obey, fins stirring up a cloud that reveals teeth. Dozens of them, ivory ghost stones wedged between rocks like molars from a drowned giant. The board emerges inch by inch. Black lacquer flaking to show blood-red cedar beneath, a forbidden color reserved for emperors. Your gloved finger traces a carved warning along the edge. The river remembers what pride forgets. Historians still argue whether this was a monk's proverb or the loser's sour grapes from a forgotten match. Surprise punches your ribs when the stones move. Not the current. Each piece sits snug in its own bronze dish, rotating lazily like compass needles drunk on ancient wine. A 2026 excavation report will call this an early fluid dynamics experiment, but right now it feels like the boards daring you to play. One stone sticks to your palm, cool long after the river's chill fades. Lab tests later reveal a jade core, veined with enough nickel to give metal detectors an identity crisis. The Xi'an Institute's blog will coin the term feng shui chess, but you'll always remember how it hummed against your skin, like a heartbeat swapped for quartz. Above deck, interns dunk the finds in rice vinegar baths. Empress Wu's personal set, Dr. Lin murmurs, holding a stone up to the smog-stained sun. Legend says she executed 2 champions for beating her in knee-deep ponds. Her smirk fades as vinegar bites into carvings nobody noticed underwater. Tiny sharks circling each stone. Saltwater predators in a freshwater river. A joke, a threat, Or maybe just a 6th century Go master's idea of irony. You almost miss the smartphone-sized slab under a carp carcass. The symbols here aren't carved, but burned, a matrix of 361 dots mirroring, goes grid, thermoluminescence dating. We'll peg it to the Yuan dynasty. But the equations reference Fibonacci sequences Europe wouldn't discover for centuries. The conservator who translates it quits archaeology a week later to rethink everything. Night falls with the team arguing over Beiju and squid jerky. Tourist trap replica, grumbles a Peking University grad student, pointing at the board's suspiciously intact corners. Real Yuan relics should, his rant dies as you flip the board over. There, under layers of algae and what might be petrified lychee pulp, hides a thumbprint. The ridges match those on Empress Wu's newly discovered tomb mural right hand, ring finger. Same slight crook from a lifetime of placing stones. Back in Shanghai, the artifacts get a climate-controlled room and a 3-hour security briefing. You linger after the crowd leaves, watching museum lights flicker across the main display. Those jade stones don't glow. Exactly, they swallow brightness like reverse fireflies. When you press a palm to the glass, your reflection wavers. Just a trick of polarized filters, insists the exhibit placard. But as you turn to leave, the shadow hand on the other side stays put, still reaching. 7 months later, TikTok erupts with videos of a lakeside town where teens play go atop paddleboards. Their pieces, pebbles that stay bone dry, even when submerged. The top comment, posted by someone named, claims they're 3D printed resin. But you've seen the high-res scans from the lab. Every microchip and air bubble aligns exactly with the Yangtze's waves. On August 12th, 2024, you're halfway to commenting POV. You ignored the shark warnings when the stones on your desk shiver in their old lady quilted case. Coincidence? Obviously. Unless the museum's night guard sends a grainy photo at 2:17 a.m. In it, the display board glistens under non-existent water. Stones rearranged into a perfect Sanson opening. Historians will spend years debating whether humidity warped the wood or if AI messed with security feeds. You forward the image to Dr. Lin with 3 question marks. Her reply takes 5 days. Buy better tea. This tastes like regret. Attached, a 14th century poem about fools who mistake fresh ripples for new waves. Rain taps your office window as you flip through preservation grants. Somewhere below, tourists are taking selfies with Empress Wu's ghost game. Their flashlights bounce off the glass, throwing shadows that for one breathless second look like fingers brushing theirs from the other side. The museum's fluorescent lights flicker as you lean closer to the photo on your screen. The one the night guard swore wasn't a prank. The Go board glistens in the grainy image, its stones rearranged into a perfect Shinglesy formation. A strategy so audacious it hasn't been used since the Tang Dynasty. You remember the history books. Emperor Xuanzong once hosted a tournament where players dueled on floating platforms in the palace moat, their moves dictated by the ripples of koi. Legend says the winner's prize was a jade seal and the loser's head, a fact the tour guides conveniently omit. Your phone buzzes, a notification from a local news site. Mysterious ghost games plague Lake Tai. Locals report midnight splashes, floating stones. The article features a shaky video of teenagers filming what looks like a go board etched into the lake's surface. Stones hovering above the water like dragonflies. Comments are split. AR filter, claims one. Hungry ghosts, argues another. You zoom in. The stones aren't floating. They're suspended by threads of water, each droplet defying gravity in a way that makes your high school physics teacher's ghost weep. Dr. Lin's voice crackles through your AirPods as you speed toward the lake. Don't touch anything. And for heaven's sake, if someone offers you spirit tea, decline. Last intern who drank it hallucinated a Tang Dynasty tax collector for a week. You park beside a vendor selling Phantom Go merch keychains, t-shirts, a disturbingly accurate plushie of Empress Wu, the real actions at the dock, where a crowd gathers around a floating platform. A man in a neon orange life vest shouts, 20 yuan to ride the ghost board, guaranteed spooky or your money back. The platform's ghost stones are pebbles, literally pebbles. But as you step closer, the water beneath them churns. A bubble rises, then another, until the surface erupts in a geyser of droplets that freeze midair, forming a three-dimensional grid. The crowd gasps. A kid drops his cotton candy. The droplets shift, arranging themselves into a tension opening, a move so bold it's been taboo since the Ming Dynasty. Historians still argue whether the tension was banned for being unlucky or just too damn hard, you mutter, snapping a photo. A local fisherman sidles up, reeking of beijiu and dried squid. You hear for the shuigui. He spits into the lake. Water ghosts. They get angry if you play after dark. He points to a nearby shrine littered with offerings, oranges, burnt joss paper, a Zippo lighter. Last week, some city boy tried to livestream them. Phone fell in the water. When he fished it out, the video showed a woman in Tang robes flipping him off. You laugh until he shows you the screenshot. The woman's sleeves are embroidered with phoenixes, her middle finger adorned with a jade ring. You've seen that ring before. In a museum, on a corpse, back at the platform, the droplets collapse into the lake. The crowd groans. Show's over, yells the life vest guy. But as you turn to leave, your foot brushes a stone on the dock. It's warm, too warm. You pick it up, a black pebble with a single character carved into it. Chinese letter, regret. The fisherman pales. That's a ghost stone. They leave them when they're done with you. He backs away, muttering about cursed Wi-Fi signals. That night, you camp by the shore, the stone burning a hole in your pocket. The moon rises. The lake stills. Then a splash, not the plop of a fish, the crisp click of stone on stone. You shine your phone's flashlight There, floating in the moonlight, two figures sit cross-legged on the water, their shadows stretching impossibly long. One wears the tattered robes of a Song scholar, the other a Qing general's armor. Their game board glows faintly, stones shifting on their own as if moved by invisible hands. You fumble for your camera, but the battery's dead. The scholar looks up, smiles, flicks his sleeve. Your vision blurs. When it clears, you're kneeling on the platform, a stone in your hand. The air smells of lotus blossoms and gunpowder. The general gestures to the board, his face half rotted, eyes glowing like coals. You place your stone. The water hisses. The board lights up, a constellation of moves spanning centuries. The scholar claps, his hands skeletal. The general roars, scattering droplets like shrapnel. You duck as a stone whizzes past your ear, embedding itself in a tree with a thunk. Dawn breaks. You wake on the dock, soaked, the ghost stone gone. Your phone's full of 127 missed calls from Dr. Lin. The last voicemail. Whatever you did, undo it. The museum's go board just rearranged itself into the Tenjin position. And the security footage shows you playing against something. Also, the mayor's here. He's pissed. You check your pocket. The stone's back, now carved with a new character. Chinese letter. Win. On the lake, a single droplet hovers, catching the sunrise like a tiny, defiant star. The museum's marble floors squeak under your sneakers as Dr. Lin drags you past glowering security guards. You'll fix this, she hisses, shoving you into a dim archive room smelling of mothballs and regret. Start with that. She points to a silk scroll unfurled across a table, its edges frayed like a burnt phoenix feather. You lean in. Brush strokes dance across the fabric, depicting two figures playing Go on a moonlit lake. Their board floats between them, stones glowing like trapped fireflies. One player wears a scholar's hat, the other, your breath catches, a dragon robe only emperors dared to wear. Notice the waves. Dr. Lin stabs a fingernail at inky swirls beneath the board. 12th century artists used squid ink mixed with ground malachite. Gave the water that shimmer. She's right, the pigment catches the light like liquid jade. You squint. Hidden in the currents, tiny figures row boats shaped like Go stones. One boat's sinking, its passenger shaking a fist at the players above. Historians still argue whether that's satire or some clerk's caffeine-fueled doodle, she mutters. Your pocket hums. The ghost stone's warmth pulses through your jeans as you examine the scroll's corner, a rash of crimson seals stamping the margin. Imperial censorship marks, but between them, barely visible, someone's painted a mouse wearing a scholar's cap, flipping a tiny bird. Subtweeting the son of heaven, circa 1123, you snort. Dr. Lin peers closer. Oh, that. She adjusts her glasses. Conservators found 8 layers of paint under here. Artists kept red-drawing the insult every time the emperor's goons scraped it off. Persistent little bastards. A droplet of sweat rolls down your neck. The scroll's water motifs seem to shift. Ripples expand where your shadow falls. You blink, the ink's dry. Isn't it? Dr. Lin's phone rings. Fix the board. She slams the door behind her. Alone, you unwrap the ghost stone. Its Chinese letter character glints. On impulse, you press it to the scroll. The silk quivers. Brushed waves rise into three-dimensional crests, dousing your wrist in phantom chill. A stone clicks. The mouse in the corner scurries along the margin, hops onto the sinking boat, and starts bailing water with a walnut shell. Sure, you mutter. Why not have a Renaissance rodent? The emperor's painted hand twitches. His sleeve unfurls beyond the scroll's edge, brushing a dusty museum lamp. Real silk brushes real metal. Your throat tightens. This isn't pigment magic. It's the same water-defying trick from Lake Tai. The stone burns hotter. You drop it. Plink. The ghost stone lands on the scrolls like a black pebble in a painted sea. Reality bends. Suddenly, your nose twink with the scholar player, his features resolving into sharp detail. Mole on the left eyelid, chipped tooth, fingers stained burgundy from bayberries, you realize aloud. Southern song elites used the fruit's juice to counterfeit expensive dragon's blood ink. Cheaper, but it stank like fermented socks. The scholar's eyes snap to yours. Ah, his voice crackles like aged parchment. The time crosser. He flicks a stone. The board's black formations ripple into the 8 trigrams of the I Ching. A gift for your, his nose wrinkles. Mayor. Behind him, the emperor curses as his white stones sink like drowning frogs. The scroll spasms. Silk fibers whip your face. You lurch back, but the stones fuse to your palm. The mouse tugs your sleeve, pointing frantically at a half-painted cloud. You peer closer. Etched into the pigment, a dial pad. Ancient China meets speed dial. You press 911. Nothing. The mouse face palms. Emergency services weren't institutionalized until the scholar begins. But a white stone smacks his forehead. The emperor's laughing now, tears streaking his powdered face. Outside, Dr. Lin's muffled voice. Was there ink flooding under the door? The scholar grabs your wrist. The cure for hubris lies with the red clay consort. His words tattoo themselves across your vision. Seek her where ink bleeds and terracotta breathes. The mouse nods vigorously, then pantomimes eating something. You toss it a peanut from your pocket. The creature bows, stuffs the nut into a miniature scholar's robe, and evaporates in a puff of sepia smoke. Reality snaps back. You're slumped over the scroll, now eerily still. Dr. Lin bursts in, slipping on ink puddles. What in the 9 hells? She freezes. The ghost stone's gone. In its place, a fresh crimson seal stains the scroll, a thumbprint encircling 2 characters. Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Ah, you wipe inky fingerprints on your jeans. That say what I think it does. She leans closer. Numbskull. Yes, a grudging smirk cracks her panic. Period accurate, at least. Your phone dings, a Google alert. Mystery vandal defaces Emperor Xuanzong artwork with modern graffiti. The attached photo shows a museum wall in Xi'an, spray painted beside a terracotta warrior. That same mouse, middle finger raised, walnut shell in paw. The caption, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, says free, BRUSHES. Dr. Lin massages her temples. I'll handle the mayor. You, she eyes your ink-streaked hands. Go find the consort and take this. She tosses you a Tang Dynasty ink cake, its surface carved with leaping carp. If you meet the mouse again, don't feed it. You pocket the cake. Somewhere, a bell tolls. Somewhere else, probably New Jersey, a gamer shouts, need backup. Through your forgotten livestream app. The ghost stone winks from your coffee cup. Smug as a cat with a parking ticket, the moon filters through barred archive windows as you spread the scroll again. Ripples stir where your breath falls. The scholar's hand hovers, offering a stone. You reach, charge ports on the left, says a voice like rustling rice paper. The terracotta ink cake warms in your pocket. A woman materializes, her robes the exact red of wet clay. She plucks the stone from the air. Children always skip the tutorials. Her hairpins a calligraphy brush dripping midnight blue. Now, shall we reset the board? Or break it worse, somewhere beneath you? The museum's ghost-infested go-board clatters like grinning teeth. The red clay consort's laugh carries the grit of a potter's wheel. You think this is chaos. She flicks her brush hairpin at the scroll. Ink bleeds across centuries. Suddenly you're choking on wood smoke in 1127, Kaifeng. Emperor Xuanzong's decree banners flap overhead, their tassels dripping scarlet. Be it known, a crier roars. Water Geo insults heavenly precision. All boards to BONFIRES by moonset. Palace guards wrestle a lacquered go table from protesting scholars. One official wails. His sleeve snags on the board's legs, and crack goes the man's nose against carved cloud motifs. You flinch. The consort tusks, first rule of bureaucratic vandalism. Never lean into the confiscation. Watch now as ministers rewrite history with kindling. A flame licks the edge of 1,000-year-old board, charring the poem around its border. White stones sing where ripples sleep becomes white stones sink where fools dare tread. Smoke coils into messenger kites, blotting out the moon. Someone shouts that the ash will stain the emperor's new peonies. Panic blooms. See that drunk kid by the chrysanthemums. The consort points to a youth hurling stone after stone into a well. Each plop echoes with spite. Zhao Ming, future Grand Secretary, current embarrassment. Historians still argue whether his well of lost stones was protest or performance art. You open your mouth. She silences you with a painted fingernail. Wait. Dawn reveals charred board fragments repurposed across the capital. A musician strings lute with blackened grid lines. Street vendors sell purified go stones as pastry fillings. Bite into a dumpling. Crack a molar on quartz. Worst of all, imperial accountants using salvaged wood for tax ledgers. Master Wei's legendary 4th century board, the consort grimaces, chopped into chopsticks for a eunuch's birthday banquet. But rebellion brews in brush strokes. Underground artists paint miniature go grids on teardrop-shaped leaves, floating them down canals. Scholars bet spices on which glyphs the currents will claim first. A monk carves stones from ice, playing rapid-fire games that melt into prayer streams. That's the thing about water, the consort muses. Ban its whispers, it becomes flood. Your sneaker slips on something. Look down kiln shards. We're inside a ceramic workshop now, where a potter slaps wet clay onto a forbidden go board template. His toddler sloshes a bucket, giggling as he helps mix slip. Careful, the man laughs. That's Great Aunt Ling's dowry mortar. You lean closer. Hidden under the child's footprints, precise stone patterns. A coded match from 2 dynasties past. Disaster strikes at the hour of dog. Fire inspectors storm in, citing excessive humidity. They seize the mold, but not before the toddler stuffs a clay stone into his left nostril, founding artifact of the nasal preservation movement. The consort deadpans, scholarship's snotty golden age. The consort's robes flare crimson as the vision dissolves. You're back in the museum, ears ringing with phantom market noise. She plucks a hairpin brush and sketches in midair, a mouse straddling an incense clock, sword raised. Ever hear of Ying Ying's last snuff? You shake your head. Ming Dynasty cleaners found combat-grade incense clocks in a Band-Go parlor. Wicks dipped in bat guano. Light one, a painted fuse burns. And boom, she mimes an explosion with ink-stained hands. 42 ministers bald overnight, hence the decree of smooth scalps. Glass shatters downstairs. Dr. Lin shouts about illuminated terracotta. The ghost stone pulses in time with emergency sprinklers. The consort fades, her voice trailing like kite string. Tell the mayor his efficiency reforms reek of Xuanzong's accountants. And feed that mouse proper this time almonds, not peanuts. You've seen what legume-based propaganda does. Rain sheets against windows. Somewhere beneath your feet, clay warriors shift in their cases. A clicking of stones, not spears. You pocket the last ink cake. The night's still young, and history's board awaits its next reckless move. The air still hums with the ghost of the red clay consort's laughter as you step out of the museum's shadowed halls. Your shoes squelch on rain-slick pavement, the storm's aftermath leaving puddles that mirror the smudge of city lights. A neon sign flickers ahead. Liquid Logic Lounge. Submerged strategy sessions. You pause. Through the fogged glass, a woman in a wetsuit gestures wildly, her hands tracing arcs like a conductor orchestrating a flood. Inside, the air smells of chlorine and jasmine tea. Patrons float in glass tanks, their hair drifting like seaweed as they maneuver stone pieces across submerged go boards. A teenager surfaces, gasping to shout. The buoyancy changes the weight distribution. It's like playing chess in 0G. His opponent, a septuagenarian with a snorkel, dunks him back under with a cackle. They're reinventing the wheel. But wetter, mutters the bartender, sliding you a matcha latte in a beaker. You glance at the menu. Ming Dynasty, moss infusion, 80% chance of enlightenment, 20% chance of mild dysentery. Try the Tang Dynasty tank, he adds, nodding toward a pool where two grad students argue over a 3D printed replica of Empress Wu Zetian's infamous lotus board. One taps a floating stone, sending ripples that topple their carefully balanced pieces. See, this is why Song Dynasty players used magnetized stones. The 12th century Manual Waters whisper explicitly says that manual's a Qing Dynasty forgery. Interrupts her partner, splashing water. The real innovation was waxed silk boards. They found fragments in a Ming tomb's cesspit last year. A clatter of ceramic tiles diverts you. In the corner, a man in a keep calm and play go shirt struggles to stack teacups into a scale model of the Yellow River's bends. It's a hydration-based handicap system. He insists to no one. The 1648 Kangxi drought rules state that if your opponent's water level drops below the 3rd chakra line, you forfeit your right to. Your phone buzzes with a notification. TikTok historians debate. Was the 1421 Yongle Emperor's lost fleet actually a floating Go tournament? The top comment reads, "Nah, bro, they were just really into competitive fishing." A sudden splash. You turn to see a woman emerge from a tank, water sluicing off a wetsuit patterned with Song Dynasty naval maps. She shakes out her hair, revealing a tattoo of the I Ching hexagram for water over water. "They're missing the point," she says, nodding at the squabbling academics. The original water go wasn't about fancy gear. It was about this. She presses a palm to your sternum, her fingers cold as a Qing Dynasty coin. The moment your strategy dissolves and you become the current. Before you can ask, she dives back under, executing a flip that swirls the tank's contents into a temporary whirlpool. Pieces spiral downward, aligning into the exact formation found on a fire-scorched board from the 1127 Kaifeng Palace coup. The bartender sighs. She does that every Tuesday, claims she's communing with the ghost of the red clay consort. Me. I think she's just good at holding her breath. A crash echoes from the restroom. You find a janitor mopping up the remains of a Song Dynasty authentic bamboo bucket, now in pieces after someone tried testing its buoyancy. "Happens weekly," he grumbles. "Last month, a crypto bro flooded the Zen garden trying to mine Bitcoin with a water wheel-powered abacus." As you leave, a street vendor presses a flyer into your hand. Guaranteed authentic water go experience. The small print reveals it's a kiddie pool behind a bubble tea shop. You're halfway down the block when a shout stops you, the wetsuit woman, leaning from a second-story window. "Hey, you dropped your..." She tosses an object. You catch it, a stone, smooth and worn. Its surface etched with the faintest hint of Song Dynasty tally marks. Rain begins again as you pocket the stone. Somewhere beneath the city's hum, a ghostly voice whispers the first rule of liquid strategy. The board is never empty. The water remembers every move. Rain drums your shoulders as you duck into a converted Victorian bathhouse, now rebranded Eurogo Splash Hub in peeling gilt letters. The smell of mildew battles chlorine for dominance. A teenager in a tricorn hat sloshes past, balancing a go board on a rubber duck float. The 1710 Bavarian water edicts he declaims to his Snapchat feed forbade oriental liquid trickery in chess, but they never mentioned Go. Upstairs, Oxford historians and Berlin hipsters pack a steamy lecture pool. Professor Ethelwyn Peabody adjusts her snorkel to lecture through a megaphone. The Han Dynasty's records of water and stone prove underwater. Go predates European tea ceremonies by fake Ming replicas. Shouts a man in lederhosen, floating on an inflatable pretzel. Our 1596 Augsburg text describes monks playing Wasserschach in beer barrels. He brandishes a waterlogged parchment, conveniently forgetting 16th century Bavaria didn't have go boards until Jesuit missionaries brought them from Macau in 1722. You sidestep a puddle where two French teens argue over a laminated map. Non, the 1804 Codex Napoleonique shows the emperor's bathhouse go strategy against Josephine. One insists, tracing troop movements with a baguette. His friend retorts, that's a croissant recipe, imbecile. A vendor offers Habsburg-approved swim goggles modeled on 1890s diving helmets. The adjacent booth sells Zen diesel, energy drinks promising Xuanzong monk focus without the 40-year meditation. You decline last month's recall for hallucinogenic algae still trends on Reddit. Near the plunge pool, a silver-haired man in a Venetian carnival mask arranges obsidian stones on a floating mirror. Caravaggio's boy bitten by a lizard, he murmurs. Plagiarized from a Ming era, Go manual's illustrations. Note the chiaroscuro mimicking submerged stone shadows. His audience, 3 art students, and a bemused lifeguard nod sagely. A splash erupts as a woman in a Viking helmet slams a stone onto a board nailed to a replica longship. Scowl, she roars. This proves Leif Erikson beat Zhang He to liquid strategy by 4 centuries. Historians still argue whether Norse Nars ever carried game boards, but her TikTok hash, Viking Go Challenge, already has 2 million views. You dip fingers into a fountain where crystals dangle over a miniature replica of Versailles Gardens. A placard explains Madame de Pompadour's rumored mirror pool tactics. Volcanic glass stones altered Louis XV's trade policies through strategic ripple patterns. The water feels suspiciously like Spampton Municipal Supply. Check this madness, whispers a grad student, shoving a leaflet at you. Cambridge's 2022 study. Water immersion boosts Go strategy recall by 17%, peer-reviewed or not. The footnotes reveal test subjects were undergrads bribed with pizza. A commotion by the sauna. A man in a clay-caked tunic reenacts Pythagoras' lost aquatic geometry lectures using seaweed and cork stones. Behold, he cries, arranging kelp into a hexagon. The music of the spheres becomes visible when a janitor unplugs his fog machine mid-sentence. Your phone buzzes. A Discord alert. Scholarship fight. User Mingtruther posts. Y'all ignoring the 1424 Naples scroll. Clearest proof Frederick II played Go in his castle baths. The top reply. Dude, that's a medieval pizza menu. As mist rolls in from the thermal springs, you spot a familiar face, the wetsuit woman from Shanghai. Now dripping onto a Brussels carpet, she's debating a tweed-clad dawn. Your European water strategy is toddlers splashing compared to the Song dynasties. Ah, but consider Venice's maritime trade lanes. He counters, adjusting his pipe. The Council of Ten's tide-based tariffs required goal-like adaptability. She snorts. Adaptability. Your Medici bankers banned water go in 1487 for distracting gondoliers. We've got edicts praising pondside masters during the same drought that cracked your Duomo's foundation. A gong sounds. The crowd drifts toward a glass tank where a Lithuanian teenager battles an AI named AquaDeepMind. Sensors track their stone placements, while ultrasonic waves mimic Yangtze river currents. The machine wins in 19 moves, a record low. Too predictable, sighs its creator. Real water has eddies and ducks. As you exit, a street musician plucks a guzheng modified with fishing line and rubber ducks. The tune, an avant-garde mix of Ein Klein Natch music and the Tang Dynasty's rainwater prelude, draws sparse applause. You drop the song-era stone into her tip jar. It clinks against euros and yuan as the first notes of Fur Elise warble through a water-filled speaker. Night falls, somewhere beneath the bathhouses' sagging floors. A pump groans, its rhythm echoing the pulse of ancient rice paddy canals. A janitor's mop slaps tiles in time with forgotten dredgers singing along the Grand Canal. Your hand finds the stone's absence in your pocket. You picture it settling among copper coins, waiting to tip the balance of some future game, where east and west blur like ink in flowing water. Rain taps your scalp like 1,000 tiny stones striking boards unseen. Across the street, a bistro's espresso machine hisses, its steam rising in curls that mirror the whirlpool left by a woman who may or may not commune with ghosts. You walk away, but the water's memory follows. It's in the flicker of street lamps reflected in gutters, in the way your breath fogs glass, each exhalation a temporary board where old strategies bloom and dissolve. The lab's fluorescent lights buzz like drowsy mosquitoes as you squelch across wet epoxy floors. A grad student in snorkel gear hands you an EEG cap crusted with what you hope is dried salt water. Welcome to Project Lotus Mind, she says, voice muffled through her mask. We're replicating 8th century monastery pools, but with Wi-Fi. You glance at the main tank. a modified hot tub where a player meditates beneath floating ghost stones, electrodes trailing from their scalp like jellyfish tendrils. Dr. Rajan Velu, lead researcher, spins a tablet showing real-time brain waves. See these alpha oscillations. He taps a jagged line spiking like Everest's profile. Last week, subjects solved Go puzzles 42% faster underwater versus dry controls. We think liquid neutralizes distractions, interrupts his intern, adjusting a valve that releases lavender-scented mist. Your brain's default mode network, the part that obsesses over past humiliations, or whether you left the stove on, goes quiet as a their pudding that fire outright no otter's nap when submerged. You lean over a monitor showing a 3D brain model. The prefrontal cortex pulses sapphire while cerebellum ripples emerald. It's basically mindfulness meets fluid dynamics, says Rajan. We've even modeled chi energy as measurable hydrostatic pressure. A stone plinks into the tank. The player makes a move while holding their breath. The brain map erupts in gold flares. A poster taped nearby catches your eye. 2017 Kyoto study. 90 seconds. Underwater boosts insight problem solving by 31%. The small print notes participants were all former pearl divers, over 70. They outperformed undergrads like it was Tai Chi versus a caffeine crash, says the intern, grinning. Half the lab seems scavenged from maritime museums. A bronze dragon-shaped pump from Tang Dynasty rice paddies. A glass case displaying Han-era stone replicas, labeled "Do not lick." The other half's pure Silicon Valley chaos, 3D printers spewing bioplastic Go pieces. An AI named Poseidon 7 that trash talks in 4 languages. You're handed a hydration monitor that's just a Fitbit duct taped to a fishing float. Ignore the coffee stains, mutters the intern. Last month, we tried testing with matcha. It got weird. In the immersion chamber, a player surfaces gasping. Did you feel the gamma wave sink? Asks Rajan, checking his data. The player coughs up water. Felt like my thoughts were river stones. Smooth, heavy. Then, optimal flow state, crows Rajan, showing you a graph where brain frequencies align like synchronized swimmers. Modern life's chaos can't compete with primal immersion. Your ancestors didn't worry about expired parking meters while hunting mammoths, right? A sudden splash disrupts the briefing. Across the room, a neuroscientist in a Moby Dick t-shirt juggles 3 kelp-wrapped stones. Ever read Moby Dick? He asks, misreading your expression. Ahab's obsession. Pure default mode dysfunction. Now imagine him playing Go mid-whale hunt. Doubt he'd have died monologuing. The intern whispers. He tried to simulate cetacean, problem solving, by injecting squid ink into the tanks. Ethics committee hated that. A crisp Brit interrupts, holding a GoPro over a zebrafish aquarium. Utter hubris, this brain mapping, she says. Her ID badge reads Dr. Isha, bioacoustics. You know, Korean Hineo divers have epigenetic adaptations for underwater focus. No fancy tech, just centuries of diving genes. Your fancy machines just catch up. She gestures to a screen showing DNA helices entwined with sonar waves. Rajan shrugs. Genes are one factor. Our latest trial used binaural beats mimicking monsoons. Subjects reported. He consults his notes. Mental showers washing away mental spam. Peer reviewers made us remove that phrase. You notice a vintage electroencephalograph retrofitted with driftwood and seashells. That's Bertha, says the intern, built in 1953 to study sleep-deprived submariners. Now she cross-references Ghost strategies with Hold On. She kicks the machine. A graph ejects, covered in crock and doodles. A debate erupts when a visiting philosopher claims Aristotle's On the Soul describes liquid cognition. His opponent, a roboticist from Soul counters. If Aristotle had a hot tub, he'd have invented quantum theory by page 2. The air tastes like copper and ambition. Somewhere, a pump thrums its arrhythmic heartbeat. You press a stethoscope to the tank and hear it. The resonance syncs with your pulse. Shadows from the water dance on the ceiling, mimicking dendrites branching. As you leave, the intern tosses you a neurotransmitter plushie. Serotonin's fan favorite, she says, though dopamine always quits mid-game for quicker rewards. Outside, rain slicks the pavement like a synapse firing. Your reflection stretches across a puddle, ripples warping your face into something ancestral, fluid, quiet. The street lamp above flickers. You recall Kyoto's pearl divers, their minds honed by generations of tide truths the lab can only approximate. A bus hisses past, its hydraulic sigh echoing the tank's drain. Your phone buzzes, a notification about liquid neural networks from an app you don't remember downloading. At the corner cafe, steam curls from your chai like the last wisp of a submerged thought. You trace the moisture on the table, half expecting to feel the drag of water against stone. When the espresso machine screeches, it's almost a welcome disruption. Proof some rhythms still resist the brain's hunger for perfect, placid silence. Through the window, city lights tremor in rivulets racing down glass. Somewhere beneath your skin, something ancient uncoils, sensing currents you'll never name. You leave the cup half full, walking home as if the sidewalk might dissolve into river at any step. The night smells of ozone, a ND Chinese letter, in vain search for equilibrium. Rain drums your shoulders into a metronome as you walk, each drop exploding against pavement like miniature depth charges. That cloven ozone scent follows like a disputative ghost, clinging to your collar. You pass a nail salon turned aquarium store, its neon sign flickering liquid zen 50% off. Inside, a teenager fills a betta fish tank while texting one-handed, his screen casting blue echoes across the water. For a heartbeat, you imagine his messages rippling into ancient cipher, tweet storms refashioned as reed-carved poems about supple-mindedness. The bus stop bench creaks beneath you, its advertising slick with rain. Lose mental barnacles. Try Hydro Focus TM brain sprays. You snort, remembering Rajan's lavender mist dispensers. How they'd hissed at interns like disgruntled geysers. A puddle soaks through your left shoe, and something in that cold leak feels deliberate, a mischievous summons. You close your eyes, and suddenly, it's not rainwater, but the pearl spring of Hangzhou chilling your toes, the 9th century pool, where monks first tested reflective strategy. Historians agree they sought to humble arrogant pupils, force them to confront their scowling reflections mid-blink, but siphon away the Zen poetry. And it's just guys in soggy robes, glaring at their own hubris between sneezes. Your fingers find the neurotransmitter plushie still jammed in your pocket. Dopamine's frayed smile mocks. You should have picked serotonin, champ. Across the street, a bookstore's skeletal remains host a pop-up go club. Players huddle under dripping tarps, their stones clacking like Morse code, translated through a seashell. You recall the Hanera boards recovered from the Wei River, grids warped by 8 centuries of silt, yet still usable if you ignored the occasional leech that misread capturing as courtship. Muffled thunder rumbles the exact frequency of Rajan's hydrostatic chi sensors. You count seconds between flashes, 1937, none, until light pollution smothers the storm. Neon signs melt across wet concrete like radioactive plankton. Somewhere, a subway train groans beneath your feet, and for 3 unstable seconds, you feel the city as Tang Dynasty, Chang'an, its labyrinthine sewers channeling monsoon runoff into scholars' courtyard ponds. They'd float lotus leaves as natural game timers, petals closing signaled adjournment. Miss your move, and your reputation sank faster than a dishonored admiral's junk. A shopkeeper shakes out a sodden rug, spraying your ankles. Watch the merchandise, she barks, gesturing to a bin of waterlogged paperbacks. A warped copy of Sun Tzu for surfers winks up at you. 3 blocks later, you're certain you've walked this street before, or maybe it's walked you. The bodega's flickering freezer hums the lab's EEG tone exactly. Inside, a clerk watches underwater hockey on a tablet, his midnight snack of pickled ginger poised mid-bite. For $6, you acquire a lukewarm coffee and a mystery artifact from the clearance jar turns out to be a plastic kangaroo someone bedazzled into oblivion. The park gate hangs ajar, its hinges whining like a disgraced samurai's ghost. Moonlight slicks the pond into an obsidian mirror, if mirrors could breathe. You kneel at water's edge, and the city's pulse fades beneath frog song. Your coffee cup hobbits ears as a makeshift ghost stone. One faint ripple, and the drink becomes an offering. Caffeine sacrifices to long-vanished strategists. Here's where you half expect a spectral hand to erupt from the shallows, moving against your formation with imperious wet slaps. Someone's left a foam noodle coiled around a birch tree, modern-day serpent guarding forgotten knowledge. You peel it free, and the foam squeaks like a tortured lungfish. 3 fireflies dare the waterfront, their glows echoed in the Nokia bright stars above. It's the exact scene from that beleaguered intern's presentation, aquatic play in post-industrial green spaces. Nostalgia, or neural relic, she'd been heckled for suggesting dog paddle intervals during board meetings. The first stone slips from your hand almost consentingly. It breaks the surface with a muted glunk, the sound of an unsent text dissolving midair. Ripples distort reflected street lamps into comet trails. You place another and another until THE Chinese letter, dual life formation emerges, a textbook tesuji from the Ming era essence of flood strategy, except your pieces are sinking Oreo cookie debris. And that poor, bedazzled kangaroo. Historians still argue whether classic underwater matches used weighted stones or relied on glacial pacing, 3 moves per incense stick, or until hypothermia set in, a fish surfaces, gulping air with the disdainful entitlement of a deposed CEO. Its wake scrambles your formation into Rorschach blots. For a vertiginous moment, you grasp what 8th century novices endured their careful plans, capsized by Carp revolutions. One Tang poem complains, even the coy mock my weak diagonal, splashing critiques in fish verse. Scholars called it metaphor. You now suspect literal truth. Your phone buzzes with a calendar alert. Brainstorm hydro-mindfulness campaign. The screen's glare murders the mood like a karaoke dive bar at dawn. You power it off, and the sudden silence feels denser, thick, with unvoiced strategies. When your fingertips graze the water, the cold doesn't shock, it beckons. 3 layers deep, past the moonlight and leaf litter, the pond hums the same pitch as Bertha, the EEG machine's standby tone. Coincidence, the lab intern would say synchronicity. Rajan would mutter about stochastic resonance and invoice you for consulting. Wind riffles the surface into crushed velvet. Somewhere beyond the park, a siren wails, its Doppler scream slicing through the lull. You count breaths as the old Kyoto divers taught their grandchildren, 468, until the lungs become bellows stoking coppery clarity. When you rise, your knees crack in unison with a branch snapping upstream. Nature's flawless comic timing. The walk home glistens with newfound intent. Potholes become miniature game boards, their oil-slick rainbows judging your pedestrian tactics. A rat dashes across the sidewalk, and for half a step, you perceive its route as a brilliant diagonal invasion, the kind that topples overconfident empires. The synaptic plushie weighs heavy in your pocket, its absent serotonin a quiet dare. Your apartment greets you with aggressive indifference. The bathroom tap drips metronome strict, drip splash intervals, matching the lab's binaural monsoon beats exactly. Coincidence number 2. You half expect the shower curtain to twitch open, revealing Dr. Shaw smirking over a clipboard. Predictable, she'd say. Terrestrial minds always anthropomorphize plumbing, but there's only mildew. and a lone shampoo bottle crusted with kombucha experiments gone feral. The mirror fogs as you brush teeth. A phantom, go bored, grids the steam. You trace a night's move with one fingertip, and somewhere, a nocturne of pipes clangs approval. When the glass clears, your reflection's gaze holds unfamiliar silt, as if the pond's murk infiltrated through osmosis. Bed springs whine their nightly protest. You press a palm to the wall, feeling the building's heartbeat through drywall, the arrhythmia of 100 sleepless screens. Somewhere, Rajan's lab hums on, data mapping the twilight zone where neurons and nymphs swap secrets. The ceiling swims with shadow patterns, only visible to water-drunk eyes. You dream of holding court in a coral throne room, advisors debating in bubble words. A squid inks tactical suggestions across kelp parchment. Your coffee cup from the park floats by, trailed by that bedazzled kangaroo riding a sea cucumber like a prized steed. The dream logic feels borrowed, a rented subconscious for a mind still landlocked. Dawn arrives, as it always does, unglamorous and faintly damp. Your shower's a lukewarm insult, but somewhere between shampoo avalanche and towel strangulation, you catch yourself evaluating water pressure like a Qing pump engineer. The hiss becomes a whispered hooey, the Chinese character for wisdom, carved in liquid cursive. Out the window, kids stomp through fresh puddles, their laughter splintering into sonic ripples. One pauses, extracting a soda can from the gutter. You watch him weigh it in small hands, the moment stretching into a deliberative pause, worthy of any Tang Dynasty master. His toss arcs high, a perfect 3-point shot into the recycling bin. The can clangs like a gong for the hydrationally enlightened. Across the street, a cherry blossom surrenders its last petals to a wind that smells, inexplicably, OF Chinese letter, berries, and antifreeze. Your phone remains off. The plushy dopamine grins from the windowsill, safely distant from charging cables and other vampiric drains. As you step outside, the sun fractures through smog into something almost holy. A delivery robot avoids a puddle with preternatural grace, its sensors parsing liquid obstacles like a canal-bred scholar. You follow dry patches down the sidewalk, each step avoiding rain remnants as if they're poorly placed stones. The espresso machine's wail greets you at the cafe, now threaded through with newfound kinship, a raucous cousin to the lab's hum. A barista slides your cup across the counter. The foam's art reads Chinese letter, serendipity. Or maybe a barista's lament about lactose intolerance. You sip carefully, carrying the brew like a borrowed relic. All around, the city pulses its wet-dry cadence, storm drains gulping, AC units dripping LINGUIST. I see Chinese letter onto concrete. By noon, every intersection feels like a potential co-fight, endless loops awaiting a sacrifice. You finger the neurotransmitter plushie through your pocket, its stitching fraying into a tactile mantra. The intern's voice surfaces, unbidden. Serotonin's the tortoise. Dopamine's the hare, crashing shareholder meetings. A pigeon swoops low, wings snapping like umbrellas in a typhoon. At the crosswalk, a woman plays Go on her phone, thumbs flying high-speed Joski. The app pings with canned crowd cheers. You resist mentioning how 7th century masters used live ducks as victory trumpets. She'd either laugh or pepper spray you, no middle ground. Rain resurfaces at dusk. You shelter under a freeway, watching droplets stitch gray curtain. The rumble of trucks becomes the growl of imaginary currents, forgotten rivers surging beneath asphalt. A graffiti tag shimmers on wet concrete. Letter 1316C, Egyptian vulture, glyphed over a submarine. No meaning, just edges blurred by runoff into accidental wisdom. Home again, you fill a salad bowl and float poker chips as makeshift stones. They bob like overfed koi. Your first move trails bubbles, a proclamation in effervescent script. The fridge hums accompaniment. When you close your eyes, the kitchen dissolves into liminal shallows, your breath, the only clock that matters. A car alarm howls. The spell holds. Later, drying dishes become meditative practice, each plate's sheen a reflection pool for residual strategy. You stack them with exaggerated care, channeling monks, aligning ceremonial weights. The fork slips, of course, clattering a dissonant shriek. Chaos theory wins again. Sleep comes slow, lured by memories of lab ripples and raindrop algorithms. Somewhere, a true night heron stalks the park pond, 6 silent kills before moonset. Your last thought dissolves like salt in the bloodstream. Depth favors not the swift mind, but the still one. The dream feet walk a bridge that sways with each step, wooden slats spaced exact as go grid lines. Below, dark water licks the pilings, whispering in a tongue of undertow, and if only you kneel, hand breaking the surface, not to play, but to listen. A stone rises to meet your palm, smoothed by centuries of maybe. Daylight finds it in your sheets, a gray pebble warmed by body heat. No memory of taking it, no visible source. Under the faucet's glare, its surface reveals faint scratches, too weathered to parse as accident or alphabet. You let it dry on the windowsill, a sentinel against pavements that forgot they were riverbeds. Rain returns as you leave for work, needling your neck like a playful tutor. You pocket the stone. The city's rhythm feels newly porous, a permeable membrane between now and every flooded courtyard, where scholars once bent, breath held, to read truth in the sink. The stone's surface, once dried, reveals a faint tracery of lines, not random, but deliberate. Under a magnifying glass, they resolve into a grid. A go board, etched by a blade or a fingernail centuries ago, its intersections worn smooth by time. You trace the grooves, and for a heartbeat, the room dissolves. The hum of traffic fades. Raindrops slow midair, suspended like beads on a broken necklace. The stone warms in your palm, and the scent of lotus blossoms floods your senses, a phantom fragrance from a long-drowned garden. History books claim the Tang Dynasty scholar officials used go as a tool for military strategy, their stone placements mirroring troop movements. But dig deeper, and you'll find scrolls hinting at stranger truths. In the Minji Bai Lu, a 12th century physician's diary, a passing mention, the masters of the submerged board sought not victory, but equilibrium. To still the mind's tempest, one must first drown it. Modern scholars dismiss it as poetic metaphor. You're not so sure. The stone's grid feels alive under your thumb. Legend says the Song Dynasty's greatest player, Li Wei, vanished mid-match during a monsoon. Witnesses claimed he leaned too close to a rain-flooded board, and the water pulled him in. His body was never found. A folktale, of course. But in a Kyoto museum, a 14th century ink painting depicts Li waist-deep in a river, playing against his own reflection, the stones floating midair like frozen raindrops. Curators call it allegory. You eye the puddle forming by your boots and step back. Rain drums a staccato rhythm on the windowsill. Somewhere in the city, a car alarm wails. The stone's lines seem to shift, aligning with the shadow of a tree branch outside. Coincidence? Your phone buzzes with a news alert. Archaeologists unearth 1,000-year-old go board in dried-up lake bed. The photo shows a stone slab overgrown with algae, its grid lines still visible beneath centuries of silt. Comments section erupts with debates. Ritual object, military tool. The lead researcher's quote jumps out. We found it anchored with iron chains. As if they feared it might float away. You flip the stone over. On the reverse, almost invisible, 3 characters carved in archaic script. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter Minazuki, waterless month. An ancient name for June, when monsoon rains cease, or a warning. Your thumb brushes the engraving, and the room tilts. The walls ripple. For 3 vertiginous seconds, you're standing in a moonlit courtyard, the air thick with the tang of wet stone. A man in ink-stained robes kneels before a board half submerged in a lotus pond, placing stones with a monk's precision. His opponent, the moon's reflection. The vision snaps like a broken string. You're back in your apartment, clutching the stone hard enough to leave marks. Outside, the rain has stopped. The pavement steams. Historians still argue whether water go was ever truly played. The Yongle Encyclopedia lists it as a meditation technique for novice monks. But a 9th century poem found in Dunhuang's caves tells of drunken scholars betting jade trinkets on nighttime matches where the board drank the moon. You step outside, stone in hand. The park's pond glistens, a black mirror. Kneeling at its edge, you press the stone to the water's surface. Ripples distort the grid lines into a shimmering maze. A fish breaks the surface with a sound like a stone falling. When the water stills, your reflection holds a stranger's face, older, eyes heavy with the weight of unplayed games. You blink, and it's gone. The stone slips from your fingers. It sinks slowly, twisting like a leaf in a storm. For a moment, the pond's depths seem to glow. Then darkness swallows it whole. Somewhere beneath the silt, a 1,000-year-old game continues. Its players long since turned to dust. You rise, knees damp, and walk home. The night air tastes of wet stone and possibilities. In your pocket, the phone buzzes again. You leave it be. Dawn is hours away, and the pond's whispers still echo in your bones, a silent invitation to dive deeper. The air hums with a quiet stillness, the kind that lingers after a storm has spent its fury. Your footsteps echo softly on the damp path. The night's chill, now a gentle embrace. The pond lies silent, its surface smooth as glass. No ripple betrays the stone's descent. Moonlight spills over the water, weaving silver threads through the reeds, as if the earth itself holds its breath. Somewhere beneath the silt, the ancient game continues, a dance of shadows and silence. The weight of centuries hangs in the air, not as a burden, but a whisper of stories untold. You breathe in the scent of rain-soaked earth, letting it steady your pulse. The world feels softer here, edges blurred by time, like ink dissolving in water. A breeze stirs, carrying the distant call of an owl. Leaves rustle, their song a lullaby for the fading night. You linger at the water's edge, watching the horizon blush with the first hint of dawn. The stone's memory lingers, not as a loss, but a promise. It rests now, cradled in the dark, its secrets folded into the earth like a cherished letter. The park empties of shadows as light spills gold across the grass. A dragonfly skims the pond, wings glinting, a fleeting spark against the stillness. You turn toward home, the stone's absence a quiet companion. The world resumes its rhythm, cars hum, birds stir, life unfolds. But the air feels lighter, as though the night's magic has woven itself into the fabric of the day. Your hand brushes the pocket where the stone once lay. Now only warmth remains. The path ahead stretches, bathed in soft light, each step a gentle surrender to the morning. Somewhere a child laughs, the sound clear as a bell. You smile, the night's mysteries settling like dust in sunlight, not forgotten, but resting. And as the world awakens, you carry the quiet with you, a soft echo of water and stone, of games played in starlight, of balance found in letting go. The breeze sighs once more, brushing your cheek like a farewell, a whisper, a breath, a final note in the symphony of the night. All is calm, all is still.